Indiana Jones speaks ancient Greek.
Oh,
sort of. And he speaks it with Archimedes. What the?
Signome, Archimedes, ima fan, alla prepino.
So, how good was the ancient Greek spoken in the last Indiana Jones movie? Let's find out together. I'm Luke, and this is polýMATHY. So after 2 years of avoiding it, I decided to finally watch Indiana Jones and the Dial. Because, why be happy? Specifically, though, I knew there was ancient Greek spoken, apparently, because so many people told me about it in this movie. And so, let's just go right to it in just a moment. I'm going to talk about the ancient Greek and Latin spoken in the movie. And then towards the end, I'll talk more about what I felt about this particular film. Warning that there will be some spoilers as we discuss this. So this is the exciting moment where Archimedes comes to actually speak with Indiana Jones. How lovely. So this is awful because this is clearly a native English-speaking actor. I assume British just from the intonation. Because as far as I can tell, he's trying to say Bos paron elelutas. And, everything is wrong about it. Let's go into more detail. So you got the modern Greek pronunciation instead of ta, which even for Sicilian Greek, I think makes sense. Archimedes was born in Syracuse, as far as we know. And this is, he's using the biggest thing, just so unpleasant, is that English language R, because I'm not exactly sure what he's saying. I think it's pos paron elelutas. So elelutas, you have come, and paron, you are present here, and pos, how? Pos paron elelutas. I think the sentence has been written well for ancient Greek and makes sense for this context, but the pronunciation is terrible. You have this English language too open sounding for the boss. So it's a boss, so it's like boss paron, and the pitch accent is absent. Pitch accent doesn't leave ancient Greek until the 4th century AD. So this, in the vowel lengths, we need all these things. And the elelutas, that U, where's the U? There's no U. And then Indiana Jones speaks. And as if it weren't already horribly embarrassing that Harrison Ford has to do this, I don't know if he has to, but we do have to endure it. He says chronia. Chronia is the modern Greek word for years. It is not the ancient Greek word for years. There is an adjective chronios in ancient Greek. It's trisyllabic. And chronios has to do with something that lasts a long time because chronos means time, or chronos. But in modern Greek, chronia are years. So he's saying Deo Hiliades, or something like that he's trying to do. It's clearly a pronunciation based on the modern Greek of Deo Hiliades. The problem is that since Harrison Ford hasn't really trained to speak modern Greek, which is he apparently speaking in this moment, he doesn't sound right. He doesn't sound right at all. So he says Deo instead of Dio. It's like, oh my God, it's embarrassing. And he mumbles again, and I don't really know what he's trying to say. Because, the actors memorize a series of sounds, and they're just like, it's Harrison Ford. He's Indiana Jones. It's good enough, even though it sounds like nothing. I don't know. Modern Greek speakers out there, were you able to understand this? Because everything he says, with the stuff that I do understand, is just modern Greek. He's just speaking modern Greek at Archimedes, so Archimedes is actually speaking with ancient Greek words. Interesting. I understood perimene and I guess emas, something like that, like us. But diushme, what? What is this? Modern Greek speakers, please help, because I'm sure this is supposed to be modern Greek, but it is. I can't even figure out what it is that he's trying to say. So write in the comments.
Archimedes.
And then he says, Archimedes. It's just like, oh my, Archimedes. Or this. But why me? Why not Medes? Archimedes. That would be the modern Greek pronunciation, but he does the S. I guess because he's making it sound kind of. I don't know what Harrison Ford's doing. It's
Archimedes.
Oh.
Ai kruketa soy apanthanamoi.
What? Kruketa? What are you saying? Ae is always. If it were ai, that would be the period correct pronunciation. But ae is a bit more archaic. I can't tell which one he's trying to say, but it sounds okay. Then he says, moi.
Ai kruketa soy apanthanamoi.
Epanthane? Again, the th is this modern Greek pronunciation that you wouldn't expect in this time period, not even from Sicilian Greek. So it's like, what's going on? I don't approve. I don't know what he's trying to say. It's supposed to be ancient Greek for sure, because of some other phrases that we'll hear a bit later that have been used were clearly ancient Greek.
Signome Archimedes ima fan.
And then Phoebe Waller-Bridge has a few things to say to Archimedes, and she also speaks in modern Greek.
Signome Archimedes ima fan. Αλλά πρέπει να φύγουμε. Έχει πληγωθεί.
Like, why? I guess I'm trying to kind of baffled by that. Just plain old normal modern Greek, except it's pronounced not terribly well in a few places. Sometimes it's fine. Other times she just, the actress didn't remember the right sounds, just like Harrison Ford when he said Deo for Dio.
Deo Iliades.
So I'm trying to figure out what they were thinking when they did this, because they went to the trouble of getting these other actors, the Archimedes and his slave, to actually speak something like ancient Greek. There's words like moi and soy. So I suppose the idea is that Indiana Jones and Phoebe Waller-Bridge, what's her name? Helena or Helena? Indiana Jones says her name both ways. So I'm trying to understand what they were doing. Now, people from the mid-20th century are not going to be real good at speaking ancient Greek. Even today, it's not real common for people to have that ability. And they speak some modern Greek. Since they're archaeologists, they travel around the world, especially places like the Mediterranean. It makes sense they would learn to have some basic conversational modern Greek, but they can also read ancient Greek. So I would have expected them to have a more interesting mix of trying to use modern Greek conversational phrases, but to supplant, I don't know, the infinitive and other ancient Greek grammar and vocabulary things. Now, they did just fall from an airplane, spoilers, and travel through time, spoilers. I don't know if that fully justifies the thing that we're hearing. To his credit, Archimedes just looks like he doesn't understand at all, or maybe he even seems like he's seen Indiana Jones before in another time travel incident. But in any case, he doesn't really seem to understand their modern Greek, which makes sense because along with the dramatic pronunciation changes, grammar and vocabulary and things like that, only parts of what Indiana Jones and Phoebe Waller-Bridge, Helena, whatever they're saying is only going to be like halfways comprehensible to Archimedes, especially in this strange, tense moment in the middle of a battle.
Soy apanthanamoi.
And here Archimedes tries to give him back the dial.
Θέλω να μένω μαζί σας μπορώ.
Θέλω να μένω μαζί σας μπορώ. Μπορώ is I can. Or can I? I think he's trying to say, Θέλω να μένω μαζί σας. I want to stay with y'all, with you plural, or you formal. Fine.
Θέλω να μένω μαζί σας μπορώ.
The mesisas will be totally incomprehensible to Archimedes. But the thelo, if you can understand, thelo is telo. And then na, if you hear it as hina, telo, hina meno, that could be kind of comprehensible. But the mesisas, no, and the boro, no. Those are not at all comprehensible in ancient Greek. Those are modern Greek things. But the way he says it is just so ridiculously strange and wrong.
Θέλω να μένω μαζί σας μπορώ.
At least what it sounds like to me. Modern Greek speakers, let me know if you would have understood what Indiana Jones said to you when he says, Θέλω να μένω μαζί σας μπορώ. Like, what?
Estas lambros anthropos.
Oh, estás muy lambros anthropos. Like she says estas. It's not the
Estas lambros anthropos.
That's not the modern Greek word for you are. I think she meant something like iste, probably, and she confused iste with the formal or you plural version in modern Greek of you are. And she confused that with estas. Estás muy lambros anthropos.
Enas sophos anthropos.
Ena sophos anthropos. Oh my God. The accents on the final there, Phoebe Waller-Bridge. It is sophos, not sophos. Getting these accents wrong every time is so embarrassing.
Mia idiophia, que eras iroas iton lausu. Ala den pori nase voi theisi.
This was supposed to be the ancient Greek scene. Somebody told me this was the ancient Greek saying, why is it just modern Greek? Why am I reviewing modern Greek, a language I know just a little bit, but however, can clearly hear the strange mistakes when she I misunderstood what enas is supposed to be. Like it's enas. She says enas as like eras or something.
Que eras iroas iton lausu. Ala den pori nase voi theisi.
Ala then bori. Like that, completely incomprehensible. Udhen bore or more or whatever would not be at all comprehensible, even if pronounced differently to Archimedes, because it doesn't follow. I dare say that her English is about as comprehensible as her modern Greek would be to Archimedes. He's just looking there, being concerned, and nice guy, wants to help these weirdo dragon people.
Anche Pepina, Sikidito, his work is not done at home. He cannot die here. He can't.
I will communicate in the language of tourists, shouting really loudly as if everyone else is stupid and deaf.
Never did I think that the Indiana Jones theme could feel like a funeral dirge. But it sure does here. And then the coup de grace.
Me too.
This movie feels like a punch in the face from Phoebe Waller-Bridge. But that's more a commentary about the film in general. I'll leave that for the end. Let's talk about the other spoken ancient Greek. So the first thing Archimedes says is "Tigna," which is not quite ancient Greek. Ti is, it means what? And gigna is nothing. What he means to say is gignatai, or maybe even tishumbaine. But gignatai would have been fine if he had taken the time to utter all the syllables in that word. Then also that would be Attic. I would have expected him to say gignatai, not gignatai, with extra gamma, since the koine form, which is derived from the Ionic form, which is gignatai, would be, I think, the more normal thing to say. But it's okay. He can use an Atticism. He just has to say the whole word. Gignatai, not just gigna. Existi. No, he's not asking for a parmakon. He is saying existi. It's possible. It's possible. This is fine. The first two words that the slave of Archimedes says, fantastic. Kyrie, hyparkonti. If you don't recognize hyparkonti, that's because it's Doric. Doric Greek speakers settled parts of the Magna Graecia, as it's called today, of southern Italy. And so here's some Doric, hyparkonti. Super awesome. Well, it's great. I love that. That's great. Then he says, Romaikon or koileon. I'm not exactly sure what he's saying, but koile, hollow or vessel, is used to mean ships. And romaikon, like polai romaikon, koilon, or something like that, is what my brain is interpreting. I'm not sure if that's what it was because I can't quite make it out. The dracontes would be fine if the pitch accent were right. It's not. It says dracontes. It's like, whoa, well, that's wrong. Dracontes would be the better pitch accent, but at least it was spelled right, probably. By the way, if you're interested in learning ancient Greek, we're offering ancient Greek lessons, myself and Rafael Torrigiano and Anastasia Hahn. You can check that out at lukeranieri.com/classes. Here it sounds like the slave is saying, Pu baine scurie. Pitch accent's, wrong because he thinks it's stress accent. And it's not stress accent in this time period, neither in Doric nor in Attic nor in Koine. So it should be indeed Kyrie. But another problem is baines instead of bainis. This is probably closed to E at this point. I think that makes more sense. I know it's Doric and I don't know why it would be different, but yeah, I mean, this is very Erasmian-like, the pronunciation that we're hearing here, which gets you most of the way to ancient Greek pronunciation in some respects. Boo, however, is the locative. It's not the allative or illative word. It's not the word for like thither or whither, like whither are you going, to where are you going, which is boi. However, by the New Testament, I know this, and by New Testament, Roman Greek, this is the Hellenistic period, but Roman Greek, centuries later for sure, boo takes the place of boi as the common way to say that in Greek. So I don't know if that had been attested because I don't remember what happens in the Septuagint, but I'll take it as clearly a deliberate choice on the part of the translator to give a sense of Koine Greek. I can't make out the second word the slave is saying here. I hear gignete, which I guess is supposed to be like gignatai, and then murke, anybody, murmedonis? Anybody have any guesses what that's supposed to be? I think this Syracusan soldier is saying hetai with a Attic pronunciation. It's odd because I would have assumed like hesa would make more sense. I mean, hetai, you are losing, you are defeated. I guess that's what they're going for, but why the double tau? Doric just has double sigma like most Greek dialects, so I don't know what's going on there. Maybe it was something else he's trying to say. Again, please, if you have guesses here, help me out. Then, even more disappointingly, speaks this Roman centurion. And I hear these, which is to the gods or something with dative ablative gods, these. I think that's what he's saying. And then mumbles it. And then he says, Yachite, which is doubly wrong. Number one, ecclesiastical pronunciation, so no. And the other is that the accent is wrong. In ecclesiastical pronunciation, the word is yachite, and it means cast or throw or send, some kind of a weapon in this case, which is clearly the artillery. But in classical Latin, as well as pre-classical Latin, which is what this is by like 112 years, the pronunciation is yakite. Yakite. That's all he had to say, and he messed that up. In any case, I don't know enough about the armor and the weaponry and other historical visual facts. Did Metatron do a video on this? If he hasn't, he should. I think it's hilarious that these pilots are arguing when the guy's going, we have to turn back, because not only do they need to turn back, they need to not hit this mountain that they're about to hit. There's like, we cannot turn around. It's like, Josh, we must. Like, it's a good thing. What are they doing flying so low? It doesn't make any sense. Really love the triskelion on the shields. Yeah, the, what's it called? Trinacria. That triangular shape, the three corners of Sicily, Trinacria. And the triskelion is a representation of that. To this day, I believe it's used as a symbol of Sicily, which is cool. Something that really baffles me is that this Roman centurion, leader of troops, unless they all died, has men at his command, but he decides to go and find out what the parachute thing is on his own. Why would you ever do that? Like this is just basic military small unit tactics for thousands of years. You do not go on your own to assail an enemy unless you what doesn't make any sense to me that would be his plan. Not a good plan. And then Archimedes says his most famous line.
Eureka.
By Grabthar's hammer.
Eureka.
Heureka. And he pronounces it well. This is the best pronounced ancient Greek in the whole film. And it's perfect. It's perfect. Heureka. The long vowels are there, the syllables, the pitch accent. Heureka. And then it also occurs to me that this is almost certainly ADR, which means that the audio wasn't recorded on the set. Well, maybe some was, but it's been replaced by audio recorded in the studio, which makes me wonder, whenever you see actors and it's a wide shot and you don't see any microphones, unless they found a way to digitally remove the microphones, which I suppose they could have, usually the dialogue has been ADR'd in, and once you know that, you start noticing it in TV and film all the time. But here, it certainly seems like probably all of the ancient Greek and modern Greek lines were ADR'd. Some of them certainly were. I think some of Harrison Ford's lines were, as well as Archimedes. But so then it's like, why do they sound so bad then? Didn't they have all the time in the world to fix this in post? And apparently this was not thought to be the most important part of this film, nor was the, script in general.
Eureka. Eureka.
Oh yeah, but it doesn't really make sense for him to say this. Yes, this is his most famous line, like in Galaxy Quest, by Grabthar's hammer. It's great, and we all applaud. Yay, Archimedes said the thing that we know. But it doesn't... Why is he saying, I've found it? In this, it doesn't mean eureka. Eureka means something else. In English means like, hooray, I've discovered something incredible. He didn't discover anything here. He's just saying like, oh, I found it, as opposed to you, slave. And the line that follows that is the one just about where we started, where he says, De hemas pugin or something, horribly pronounced, except that the pa is sounds like it's right. It doesn't sound like he's saying a fa. It sounds like he's doing pa. But then he messes up eu, peugin, if you want to do Attic, or peugin, if you want to do the contemporary pronunciation here, peugin. That would have been better, and not de, but di. That's all the ancient Greek in Indiana Jones and the Dial. A bit earlier in the movie, there is a bit more ancient Greek. It's just written, and it is on the Polybius square. So the Polybius square is a code where you take the Greek alphabet and arrange it like this in a square, and then you put these numbers, let's change these Arabic numerals into Greek numerals, and then you get this. So if you want letter alpha in this code, it is 1, 1, 1, 1. Looks like number 11. And 1, 1 in Greek looks like this. So you get all these correspondences. And I wonder, did they actually make this prop say something? And I decided, well, let me transcribe it. I made it a Google Sheet, which is publicly available. Go ahead and look at my work. I probably made some mistakes, but I definitely got some of it, because the first word is he makana, which she actually says, the Phoebe Waller-Bridge character actually says that. She says,
My Makana, that's machine, my Makana,
which is nauseating. However, the Doric is not, because instead of it being mekane, it's makana, which is the Doric, because that was in the older form of Greek, and Doric preserves that. The word makana is then taken into Latin, an early form of Latin, as makana, and then that unstressed becomes I, as it often does, going from Old Latin into Classical Latin, and thus machina, the word for machine, which is really cool. And the fact that they have a little bit of Doric in the language of Archimedes, I think that's cool and a nice touch. So anyway, I was able to get some of the text, which is he makana. I'm going to read that. Shun amoy ketai, lies with me. The machine lies with me, and te pole, hen, in the city which, and then I may have made a transcription mistake of what I could read on the screen, because it's kind of in shadow, it's not really clear, and I couldn't read every single one of the boxes there. But maybe you can do better. But the last bit is, I wrote bazin, but it should be like badizden or something like that, badizin, for more Koine pronunciation. And so that's to walk, which he says in the translation, hypo hena ek ennea gemai. So gemai, I lie, hypo hena ek ennea. Below 1 of 9, and it's supposedly about the muses or something. But shouldn't it be henos? Why is it accusative and not genitive? That seems like a little mistake on the part of the person that translated this into ancient Greek, as far as I can tell. But anyway, if you all are able to decipher this a little bit better, take a whack at it, and I started the work for you. Let me know in the comments what you can figure out. But I was surprised. I was pleasantly surprised that there was actual Greek written onto that tablet. Like for like a couple seconds of like just having that thing on screen. They didn't have to have it on the screen so visible, but they went to the trouble of translating it and then putting into the Polybius square code and then putting that code on there, and either they made a couple mistakes or I made mistakes, but most of it is there, and it's actually ancient Greek. The actors, maybe not so good at pronouncing things, but there was a lot of love and care put into trying to do that. The one thing I find a bit silly is that it's a square, because I thought, oh, a Polybius square. It's got to be a square. No, the code isn't a square. The message could be any way you want, any way you would sequence those pairs of numbers together. One, the 1 1 and the 2 3 and the 5 1 or whatever. They could be vertical or horizontal in a ring. And then when the thing melts, and then it's all like a red herring or something, because then he melts it, and then inside is the circle thing of the graphikos, and that's has linear B on it or something? I don't know linear B. Would Archimedes have known linear B? Oh, wait a minute. And one more thing. I have to complain about this. The time machine, or how does it work? It's able to find time vortexes. Okay, that's cool. But they're like right there in the sky. Let's assume they occur all kinds of places. It seems kind of big and like vortexy and like Charybdis, like it sucks you in. If this were a real natural phenomenon, surely pilots the world round by, the early 21st century, or, people walking around, assuming they occur on the ground, which they would have to for Archimedes to have used them, which is, I think, the point, right? That he makes it work. He succeeds in making it work, right? Isn't that the point? Like, how did he even discover this? How do you discover something like that and then make a device that could detect? Like, none of that makes sense. Like, I found the crystal skull almost more believable at this. Like, I know it's but the real problem I have though is that unlike the first movie, so the Raiders of the Lost Ark, it's the Ark. But the Ark is not, as far as anybody knows publicly, an artifact that people actually have access to. It'd be amazing if it were, both real and preserved. That would be amazing. And also, the cup of Christ. Wouldn't that be amazing? The Holy Grail. It would be all of that would be, glorious. And then the Kali and all the stones on it. That's all, all that. None of those are artifacts that you can actually get access to. And crystal skulls are whatever they are. But the Antikythera machine, or Antikythera, or however you want to pronounce it, it's a real thing. It is an actual object, and it looks like this. The problem I have is that they decided to say that the artifact itself is the Antikythera machine, instead of saying that the artifact, that the MacGuffin, which has like 15 parts, it did not have to be a real historical artifact that's in a museum somewhere and looks like it's a mess. It's not in great shape. They could instead have said they found miraculously preserved, not underwater like the Antikythera machine, which is badly damaged from the water, but in some other place where you could believe that a metal object made with the metallurgy of Archimedes' time, of the 3rd century BC, that it could actually, be preserved and be that complex and all that, that was, based off of it. Because the actual Antikythera machine is supposed to have been inspired by, what are they called? Oraries or planetarium things that to predict the motion of the stars, that apparently Archimedes wasn't developed. I don't remember exactly, but the Antikythera machine, though, postdates, as far as I recall, the life of Archimedes, which is, part of the issue. So instead, they could have just said that Archimedes, sure, that there's this legendary thing that he made that only a few people know about. Just, the World War II era Germans and Indiana Jones and that guy Baz and Phoebe Waller-Bridge. And there's a few people know about it, and that's better because now we don't have to have it be this real object that ends up getting tossed around and turned into this ridiculous time machine thing. So just a little bit of tune-up here and there, and I think this could have been a good movie, except that I wouldn't have wanted to see old Harrison Ford, especially not super sad Indiana Jones. It's a punch in the face. Dial of Destiny. It's a real punch in the face. The best part of the movie, I think, is this whole end scene when they actually travel back in time. But it happens at the 2-hour mark. It's this kind of nice 15 minutes, and it reminds me of like a Star Trek episode. And I love the high concept, the time travel. That could be kind of silly and embarrassing in Star Trek too sometimes. But I love that stuff. That's great sci-fi. Well, it can be. It's at least campy and entertaining sci-fi, and that's fine. In some ways, I liked the ideas in this movie a lot better than Crystal Skull, and I would have liked a lot more time in the ancient time period. As a former pilot, I think the maneuver that these airplanes are in is probably not recoverable, at least the smaller one. It seems like I don't think they would properly recover from this, since they don't have enough altitude from best I can tell with the circumstances. Oddly enough, though, they then proceed to fly as low as they can. I mean, the little kid who's not really a pilot is doing that, okay, but they fly really low to the water and to the ground so that they're in range of Roman artillery. And this is just so stupid. What is there something mechanical that's preventing you from flying at a normal altitude? You're not a helicopter. What are you doing? Get up, get altitude. This is really dangerous. And of course it is. So now, hopefully briefly, I'd like to say what I thought about this film. It has some very servable parts. The production, very high quality. The historical stuff, as far as I can tell, we'll have to ask Metatron. The costumes and stuff on the Sicily and that ancient part. I wish that was the whole movie. That would have been great. That would have been, a dream. Even if the Greek and Latin were horribly pronounced. Oh no, on second thought, maybe I wouldn't have enjoyed that so much. But if that were well pronounced, or, even pronounced in a mediocre fashion, which this was not, then that would have been a much more entertaining film. They have Indiana Jones running around. Well, not running. And that's really the problem. Not that the script is bad, which it is, and there's a lot of things there, but there's some things that are good. A lot of interesting ideas in this. I think this could have worked in a lot of ways, but ultimately, this is a film I don't think should have been made. I definitely resonate with what Red Letter Media, what Mike's DeClasse said, 10, 15 years ago, or however long it was, when The Crystal Skull came out, which is that nobody wants to see old Indiana Jones. There is a place for older characters, men and women, to do heroic things in film. But the character of Indiana Jones seems not to be a good choice for that. The first 3 films, the original trilogy of Indiana Jones, should have been just that. Harrison Ford was still in fine shape in The Last Crusade, but even compared with the much older Sean Connery, you could still see he just wasn't the young, spry guy he was in the early 80s when the first Indiana Jones film came out, and that's fine. It all worked. But then the Crystal Skull came out, 20 years later? And it's just not the same thing, because Indiana Jones, women love him, men want to be him. Why do men want to be Indiana Jones? He's smart, cultivated, world traveler. He knows all these languages, and he has all these incredible, insane, and fun adventures. It's great. This is a fantasy character that both men and women in the audience, I think, can like in the original trilogy. But in Crystal Skull and in the Dial, the premise is just wrong. Just as strange as it might be to take, I don't know, characters from a teen high school comedy, maybe Saved by the Bell or something, and then it's 30 years later and they're doing some kind of adventure. Actually, that sounds kind of fun now that I mention it. But it's just like it's the totally wrong environment, and it could never recapture the same magic or vibe at all, because Indiana Jones is very much of that time period, and it's also very much the nostalgia of Steven Spielberg and George Lucas for the 1930s kinds of adventure serials, just like Star Wars. That's what that stuff is. So now it's just nostalgia for the original Indiana Jones trilogy, and I just don't think it works very well. So I think that's wrong. And then, more spoilers, why? Why in the 4th film, in Crystal Skull, would you give Indiana Jones, you know, he's older and all this stuff, and okay, finally gets to settle down, put down his hat for a second. He gets a son he didn't know. What was his name? Skippy? I can't, whatever. Shia LaBeouf's character. He gets a son, and then he gets a wife, and it's Marion from the first film. Okay, shoehorn is the first thing that comes to mind. But I'd still like, okay, you know, that's kind of a sweet ending. And I was willing to roll along with that, even though the film was severely lacking, I think, in a number of areas. The premise is fine. I know it's wacky things, that's fine. But just, you know, anyway, I was down for that. Then like, okay, well, you know, that was not great. But it's over now. Little did you know that Dial would come out. It's been 10 years? 15? How long has it been? Wait, let me look it up. 2008? He was so old in 2008, Harrison Ford. And now you want him to do this in 2023, I guess it was? I spent 2 years doing everything I could not to see this movie because I knew it would disappoint me. And oh, it did. It was... I mean, I wonder if this could have worked in any way. It has so many fundamental issues, but I don't know. The very end of the scene in Sicily where she punches him right in the face. It's like, that's what this movie feels like. That's what Dial feels like. It feels like a punch in the face to our love of this amazing character from the original trilogy. And also specifically, I gotta say, if you introduce the fact that, yeah, he has a son, he has a wife now, and then all these years later, what is that, 15 years later, his son is dead in the war because he volunteered, I think. And Marion, in her grief, couldn't bear to be around Indy anymore. And so wanted to divorce him. And it's just like, why? This is even worse than the Force Awakens. Why do this? Would Harrison Ford want to do this? Why would anybody want that? Why would you want to put that kind of sadness and grief and agony into a character who is hyper realistic, almost kind of a cartoon character in the original, which is fine, but he gets like punched and shot so many times, like normal people would not have survived probably all that stuff we see Indiana Jones go through in the original films. And that's the point, because he's a little bit more than human. He's a superhuman character. He has all that plot armor, but he's also energetic and lively and has the joy of everything and the adventure. I mean, all of that is in the original 3 movies, and it's totally absent here because of this tragedy that's befallen the character.
When you're in a tight spot, dynamite.
My friend was just murdered.
And his friend just died. Like, what? Why? Why do this? Why make these decisions? And given the tragedy, however, that this character, that Indiana Jones, our Indiana Jones, this miserable state, his son is dead, his wife has left him, he is feeling old and useless. This is awful stuff to do to our favorite character. And in the way he reacts to all this, you know, he's unrecognizable as Indiana Jones, as a character, other than it's Harrison Ford playing him, because he's so sad and he's just giving off all of this sense of, you know, being old at heart. Is the thing. He feels very out of time. He's the old man in his underwear going over the neighbors to tell him to turn down the Beatles. And it's like, I didn't want to see Indiana Jones do any of that. Also, I love the Beatles. But what, like, it's so out of place and out of time to do that to him. But okay, you make him miserable. You make Indiana Jones absolutely miserable. Did he smile at all in this movie? He didn't have any reason to, especially with Wombat just, you know, showing him up and better at Indiana Jones stuff in general. You know, I think the actress played the part the way it was written, but I don't think that character should have been in this movie because it's just so unpleasant. It was so unpleasant to see Indiana Jones bested and humiliated one too many times. And this really comes to that punch in the face. He has no reason to live or to be in the 20th century. Through a freak accident of time travel, he ended up in this amazing time period when he says, I've dreamed about this, I've studied it, and I've imagined it, all these things. He says to Helena at the end, like, let me stay here. I'm not long for this world. Let me enjoy what little time I have left experiencing this. And now, but at the end, she's like, Indiana Jones has grown on her. Good for her. She has taste after, hating him the whole movie, but wants to save him. But gotta tell you, empathizing with that Indiana Jones, if I'd lost my son, and why, God forbid, what a horrible thing to happen, but all you have left is this thing that you love so much, that you sacrifice so much to defend.
That belongs in a museum!
It belongs in a museum, right? He made that choice, and he put on his hat.
I need to do this.
I am Indiana Jones, and this is, it's very sad. This is the funeral dirge. But this is there are worse ways to spend your final days, weeks, months, years. I'm not sure how badly injured he was, but I don't think he was at severe risk of immediate death. I guess that he was unconscious for a little while later. I don't know. The writers put all of these things together in such a way where the right choice, only right choice, was for Indiana Jones just to stay there. Like you guys came up with this situation. You didn't have to have all those series of events. You didn't have to ruin his life, make him the most miserable character, and then give him one chance to really explore and enjoy this thing, and just for himself. No discovery, no sharing, nothing in a museum, just to live it with no other ulterior motive. Like this, whatever about changing the past. Like if you go back for a split second in an airplane, you would have completely changed history anyway. So either it's a separate timeline that branches off, or it doesn't matter. And don't get me started on, like, how do you find a time vortex in the sky if you're Archimedes and you can't fly? Were they always time vortexes in the sky? Like, what if the location of the time vortex was under the ground or up in space? Like, it just happened to be accessible by airplane at a reasonable altitude for an airplane, a 1940s airplane, no less, to fly at? Like, okay, whatever. But you set all this up. It's his decision, and the movie all had it for us to respect that. And punched it right in the face. I don't know. I mean, that's how I feel. Did you like the movie? If you did, that's great. I think, really, sincerely, enjoy what you enjoy. Like it if you like, but that's what this movie said to me. I think it was a neat premise. This could have worked. I think if they really wanted to do this story, have it be young Indiana Jones, and I don't know how to do that. Probably best thing is don't use that AI face changing stuff. Don't use de-aging, because gotta say, in the first part of the movie where it's all the de-aged Indiana Jones, it doesn't work. It's it's better than ever, but it's still uncanny valley. He's barely moving his face. You can tell it's not real. And that's the irony. Like, we're used to seeing a human actor play a cartoon character in the original trilogy, and now it's a cartoon character playing a stoic sort of human being. Anyway, it doesn't work. You could make this a tight hour, 50-minute film, cutting a lot of stuff out of it, and also just not doing it in 1969. Have it be back in the 30s and just have him do another adventure. Make it be an actual cartoon, perhaps. That way you get away with having a different voice actor who can do a great impression of Harrison Ford from the 80s. I know, because Harrison Ford can't. His voice is much older now. That just happens, Or just casting a younger actor who looks and sounds like 1980s Harrison Ford if you really want Indiana Jones to come back as a character. There's not the way to do it. This was sad and depressing, and the ending was kind of a way to make it heartwarming, but it's just like, why put him through this tragedy and divorce him only to have him get back together with Marion, which we weren't expecting or needing anyway in the Crystal Skull. But there you go. That's Indiana Jones and the Dial. Thank you so much to my Patreon supporters and to each and every one of you for watching and liking and sharing this video. Eros te hygienete. Of Destiny Child.